Welcome back, Lions and Dashers, to another video in this mock draft series. Today's edition, the Baltimore Ravens. So before we get into it, or pretty much tell you what I'm going to do with the Ravens, I'm going to give you a brief synopsis on what happened in the offseason. Or I guess even a more specific synopsis. What's going on with Lamar Jackson? So that's obviously the big turning point in what the Ravens will do in this draft. Will they trade him? Will they keep him? Nobody really knows. But I'm going to explain both sides as to why there is a huge, pretty much a stalemate between the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, and Lamar Jackson going to another team. So, from Lamar Jackson's standpoint, he's reportedly been wanting a deal like Deshaun Watson, reportedly fully guaranteed or like 90% guaranteed. So, the Ravens aren't really wanting to give that. But here's the thing, it's more than just the Ravens aren't wanting to give it. There is a rumor slash, I guess more like conspiracy theory, to where pretty much the league, the owners of the NFL are kind of wanting to have a reset on the QB market. Because I mean, especially with Aaron Rodgers, pretty much Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes are the guys that have been elevating this QB market. It's gotten ridiculous. I mean, these guys are making 50 million a year. That's about a third. I mean, it's a little less than a third of the cap space. And paying that much money to a position, I mean, no boss, no NFL owner wants to pay that much for just one guy, even though if they're that talented. And with Lamar Jackson having an MVP and being one of the best rushing quarterbacks in the league, he's going to be demanding a high payout. And so with Lamar Jackson wanting a Deshaun Watson like deal, if y'all remember, Deshaun Watson got a 5-year, $230 million fully guaranteed deal. So that's kind of a lot to give up. And there's a reason that both sides are wanting this. Number one, or not both sides, but there's a reason why there's a stalemate between both of them. Number one, Lamar Jackson, for his argument, he's an MVP. He's the best rushing quarterback in the league, as I said before, and he's done very well in the regular season. He hasn't had much success in the playoffs. Part of that is, I think, that's due to his environment, as pretty much his environment, his supporting cast. But you can also argue for the Ravens' standpoint that Lamar Jackson is the product of a perfect situation, perfect environment. What I mean by that is Lamar Jackson kind of was drafted into the best franchise. He was the best fit for the Ravens because Ravens offense loves to run this ball, and he's a very athletic, very fast quarterback. And so he's kind of flourished in the system that's been built for him. And that's what a lot of these other NFL teams who have been thinking about maybe trading for him are concerned about. Because if you have a quarterback who's performing in a very perfect situation very well, and you know that you don't have that perfect situation, that perfect environment for him, how well will he perform? Will he be able to adapt into that new system or will he not? That's the reason why the Falcons have been kind of the top trade prospect, because not only do they not have a whole ton of players that are already there, Lamar Jackson can be the building piece so that they can build around him. But teams like the Lions, the Colts, those teams have kind of already had their offenses set, and they're nothing like the Ravens. They love to pass the ball more. Even though both those teams are pretty good at the run game, they both like to pass the ball. And so a lot of these teams, like the Colts and the Lions, may not be willing to risk trading two very valuable first round picks at the minimum to get Lamar Jackson. And in any trade scenario to where Lamar Jackson does get traded, it has to be a minimum of two first round picks due to his exclusive rights tenure tag that he's been given on March 2nd. So I'm gonna show y'all a quick document, a quick thing on the offseason of the Ravens, and then I'm gonna tell you where I'm gonna go with the Ravens and why I'm doing so. Alrighty, so here we have the Ravens pretty much off season. They're pretty much all their off season moves. And so obviously the only addition that they've had is Nelson Aguilar. Yeah, that's not going to keep Lamar Jackson. Yeah, okay. For a team that has no wide receivers and then you try and sign Lamar or try to sign Nelson Aguilar, bitch please. Bitch, please. They restructured a couple contracts here with a few of their key pieces, and then they had some player visits. They released Calais Campbell. I think they saved around 10 million, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that number. They released him, uh, re-signed a couple of depth guys, but then here's where it really gets interesting, and this is where I'm going to kind of lead into why I think the Ravens are going to go in the direction they do. Um, you look at all these guys, right? You recognize these names. Even for you and casual NFL fans, you recognize Justin Houston. You recognize Jason Pierre-Paul. Maybe you recognize Kenyon Drake. You definitely know Sammy Watkins. You definitely know Kyle Fuller and Marcus Peters. All these guys, they're old. They're old veterans that have been signed on 1, maybe 2 year deals that the Ravens have been hoping to get so they can bring some veteran presence, but also try and be competitive when it comes to playoff time. Well, clearly that has not worked. And unfortunately, they are suffering because of it. Now, with them seeming to transition from the old age to the new age on their team has gone significantly younger by not signing any of these guys and then releasing Calais Campbell. So, with that in mind, I think that this team is going to trade Lamar Jackson. With the fact that this team is going super young, they're going to want to try and get as much draft pack capital as they can. And it seems very adamant that they don't want to pay for Lamar Jackson. So I think they'd rather get a younger quarterback on a way cheaper deal and pretty much get some other pieces to build around that quarterback as well. Because to be honest with you, I think this is the best situation for the Ravens because they made a mistake with Lamar Jackson and not giving him enough weapons outside of Mark Andrews in the passing game, and that's clearly hurt because ever since they lost Hayden Hurst in the 2019 MVP season, he hasn't been the same. I'm not saying Hayden Hurst is like that tight end. He was still tight end two to Mark Andrews, but the fact that he had to rely on his tight ends so much because his wide receivers couldn't do jack shit is a reason why that Lamar Jackson is not successful or the Ravens have not been successful in the playoffs as we thought he would be. And so I think with them getting additional draft capital in exchange for Lamar Jackson, they'll get the QB of this year and then also maybe get some weapons around him. And as we see here, they traded for Roquan Smith, who they'd rather pay him instead of Lamar Jackson, and he's young. Patrick Queen is still young. Odafe Owe is still young. Kyle Hamilton, they just drafted. Marcus Williams, they just signed to a huge deal. Marlon Humphrey is still relatively young. Ronnie Stanley, they still relatively young. So this team is still young. J.K. Dobbins, Rashad Bateman, all of these guys are young. All of these guys are young. And with them going that way, we will trade Lamar Jackson in this PFF mock draft. So before we get into it, I did want to show y'all something. I took the time out of my day to create a list. I created a list of needs, of personalized needs. Now, obviously, in PFF, they have the needs for each team, right? They have QB, wide receiver, edge, QB, wide receiver, whatever, right? But I went in into the depth chart, looked at each player's pretty much PFF ranking and stats, and pretty much decided what teams actually needed what. Because I realized in PFF, they're putting list of needs in there that aren't really needed. Now, the majority of the time, PFF is good when it comes to getting the needs, but I wish they were kind of a lot more specific when it comes to each position. Because as you see here for the Ravens, um, right now they obviously need a wide receiver, defensive end, but then they need more of like a cornerback too, instead of just a cornerback, because they lost Marcus Peters, they lost Kyle Fuller, and so they need more of a cornerback too. Or, for example, with the Dolphins, they don't need a left tackle because they just signed Terrence Armstead, but they do need a right tackle because on PFF they would just list it as tackle, and that's not. I kind of want things a little bit more specific, you know. And then a lot of the times you'll see on the list here, if I just put guard instead of like right guard or left guard, it's because they need both of those positions. So I try to be specific with each of these needs, and then kind of that based off my draft on this. So for the Ravens today, we need a wide receiver, defensive end, and cornerback too. Because if you look at the depth chart, um, look at these defensive ends. Do y'all know their names? Do y'all know who they are? No, no, you don't. Nobody does. Sorry, guys. It's no disrespect. You made the NFL. You're doing great, but You're not going to get these Ravens anywhere, right? So before we get started, I will trade Lamar Jackson here first. We will do it to the Colts for this scenario, just because the Colts, you know what, they've been on the QB carousel for a while now, and I think they'll be willing to take the risk. They're the most likely team to take a risk on Lamar Jackson because they've been desperate ever since they lost Andrew Luck back in 2017. So I think it's going to be worth two firsts, a fourth, and then potentially actually we'll do a third and a fourth as well. So I think this is more than enough draft compensation. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little less when the deal actually happens. But this is the trade that we will do. So we will start the draft. Alrighty. And so in the situation, the Cardinals did not trade, and now we are on the clock. So there's only really one option here, and that is to get our quarterback of the future. And obviously, this guy, he's the closest thing to Lamar Jackson, closest player to Lamar Jackson that we've seen in a while. And he's got the right athleticism. He's got the great run game. His passing is a little bit iffy, but could be a high risk, high reward type of player. And Ravens can't allow him to fall. We will take the quarterback of the future in Anthony Richardson. Alrighty, we are on the clock here. So I was maybe thinking of going wide receiver, but in if y'all know the Ravens, they tend to let me say this. They tend to just draft the best player available. And the best player available by far is Cansey. Now, even though he's listed as defensive lineman, he will be able to play defensive end because they already have Michael Pierce. But being able to build that defensive line to rebuild that dominant that run defense that they've had in Baltimore for years, this guy would be the perfect fit. Now, you could see them go with like Miles Murphy. I was hoping to get Nolan Smith here to get on the edge to create some extra pass rush, but we're gonna go with the best player available here. Help build that run game again and get Cansey. Alrighty, we are on the clock here. I already know who I'm going with. We're gonna get our cornerback to the future. Now, I was thinking maybe we go with wide receiver here, but this guy's grades are not really spectacular. He only played 6 games this last year too, and I mean he's 6'2", 213. He's good size for a wide receiver, but it's just nothing stands out with him, you know. And then with the safety, we don't need that. We don't. This corner is available, but I've never liked this guy. I mean, this guy's coverage has been pretty good, and he's gone against some decent competition. But here's the thing: he went against Georgia, who yes, they have a very stacked team, but 52 grade against a good team that's not that good. Did 74 against Texas. I mean, that's better. But I mean, this dude is 5'8" and 178. I don't want a corner that's gonna get mossed by some 5'10" little fucker. You know, I want somebody that's gonna be able to stand up a little bit, and that's Keely Ringo. This guy has decent coverage grades. He's not really that like flashy when it comes to his grades, but what I'm looking at here is his size. He's 6'2" and 207. He's obviously a mammoth. I mean, he's great at the press coverage. I mean, he screams a Baltimore Raven to me. So we will take Keely Ringo. Alrighty, we are on the clock here. So I know for you Ravens fans, y'all are probably wanting to get a wide receiver right now, but I'm gonna be honest with you. There's not a whole lot of wide receivers left here. I know Michael Wilson has been kind of falling. I mean, his ranks is pretty high, but I really just don't like him. I really don't. And then you look at Kayshawn Bout. I mean, eh just kind of now that could be due to quarterback play, but I mean it's just he is super young, just nothing flashy. But I will be looking to get this guy later on. I'm gonna take a risk here. He has good contested catch, good runs yard per route, low drop rate, and then a great receiving grade. Has gotten a little bit inconsistent, but has done pretty well over the years. And then he's 5'11", 183. I mean, that's pretty good. He averaged almost 20 yards per catch, which is amazing. But his draft ADP is 89, which is a little bit, but then the rank 109 is what I'm seeing here. So I'm hoping he falls to our 106 pick because I want to get this guy. Now, I know I just drafted defensive lineman again, but I'm going to take the risk here. I've drafted this guy in other drafts before, and I love him. He's 6'3", 292. He's young. He's gonna help that run grade. He's a 3-4 defensive end, and Y'all remember the Ravens run a 3-4, so he would fit seamlessly in this Baltimore Ravens defense. This guy is very good pass rush, very good run defensive grade. He did very well this last year. I mean, look at that. That is amazing. That is beautiful, beautiful to see. So we are going to take Moro Ojamu. Alrighty, we are on the clock here in the fourth round. I'm going wide receiver no matter what. We just kind of have to. I was looking at this guy. This guy's a great receiving grade. Not that good against man coverage. Contested rate is kind of bad. I mean, both of these are kind of bad to be honest with you, especially Nebraska Cornhusker. I mean, it's kind of a big yikes, but his 4.33 is what I'm really looking at here. Wide receiver, very fast, very. I mean, he's pretty good for his size at 6 foot 192. You don't see guys like that running a 4.33, which is, I mean, which is fucking fast. So I'm either thinking we either get the wide receiver here, the slot wide receiver, or get Trey Palmer. I'm thinking the drop rate and contested rate is way too bad, to be honest with you, especially in college. I mean, it's only going to get worse in the NFL. So we're going to get his slot wide receiver of the future. Anthony Richardson, slot wide receiver. We're going to get him here at the fourth round in Parker, Washington. Alrighty, we have a second fourth round pick. Ravens, I think y'all are gonna love this pick. We're gonna double dip a wide receiver here in the fourth round. Here's why: he is way better drop rate and then a way better contested catch rate than the other guy, and good overall receiving, pretty much better grades all around than this guy than the other guy we were looking at. But here's the thing: what I really like about him is that he's 6'2" and 220. And the fact that he's able to do this, have a contested catch, Anthony Richardson's going to need a guy that can get those jump balls in the air. Maybe this guy could be a potential wide receiver one even on this team, but we're kind of go with the physical attributes, and he did very well at Ole Miss. So we're going to go with Jonathan Mingo. Alrighty, we are on the clock in the fifth round. So we're gonna go defense here since we just double dipped our wide receiver. What I was thinking is maybe getting this guy Torrey Trice. He is not really that great of grades, but this man is big at 6'3", 206. I'm kind of worried that he's gonna get beat in breast coverage a lot, especially in the NFL and in a division where he has to go against like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. That's not gonna be very fun at all. I may go honestly with edge rusher here to get some depth behind Owe because this guy is massive. He's had great grades. Now he's not going against the best competition, but his grades are amazing. At 87 run grade and 90 pass rush grade, has done very well in all 3 years of his career. But what also is standing out to me is that this dude is 6'4" and 276, wanting to play edge. That is physical attributes that cannot be taught. And I know a lot of my stuff when it comes to this is physical attributes, but I mean athletes, you can teach players how to make a pass rush move, but you cannot teach height and weight. You cannot teach that. And on top of his physicality, I mean his physical attributes are amazing, but on top of that, with his great grades, I think there's a very high potential here that he could do very well in this league. We're gonna go with Valami Fehoko. Alrighty, we are on the clock here. I was looking to maybe, I know this kind of maybe anger you Baltimore Ravens fans. I was thinking about maybe going this guy at safety. I mean, he has decent grades, but again, his competition's not that good, so it's probably a little bit inflated. I mean, he didn't do that well even against some of these universities. But what I think it makes him stand out from the rest of the safeties is that he's 6'3" and 276, or not 276, 216, which, I mean, no, that's very tall for safety. But here's the thing: they already drafted Kyle Hamilton last year, and even though they did trade Chuck Clark for depth, they still have Geno Stone, who is he's a quality third down or quality third safety. So if anything happens, I think they'll be fine at that position. But I was looking at defensive line again, and I saw this guy Thomas in Coom. Sorry, I just got canceled. In Coom. So this guy has not that great pass rushing grade, but I'm looking at this defensive grade, this run defensive grade. He's done very well this last year. I mean, he's pretty good size at 6'2" and 262. He probably play more of like the defensive end type. I mean, here's the thing. I know we already drafted two defensive linemen, but when you look at it here, they really, they really only have five guys playing on that defensive line, which is not really good. They need to have like seven at the least. They need to have guys that can back up both of these guys. I mean, we're pretty much trying to draft stars for the position or starters for the position, but also depth at the same time. So we may see the Ravens take more of a defensive line approach since they did lose a bunch of guys in free agency on the defensive line, like Jason Pierre-Paul, like Justin Houston, and Calais Campbell. So we could see them take a whole draft class to redo this defensive line. We're not getting this guy. This guy was trash. We are going to get Thomas in Coombe. Alrighty, and as y'all know, PFF does a pretty much a review for each of our transactions in this draft. I'm hoping I did pretty well. I don't know if y'all saw in the last video or my. Alrighty, we are here at the end of the draft. PFF will give a grade on each transaction that we did. Unfortunately, they didn't give a grade for the um, the trade that I did for Lamar Jackson. I was really hoping for that one. But the majority of times they will do a grade for each transaction and then they'll give us an overall one. So let's see how well we did here according to PFF. So take that with a grain of salt. We got a B for Anthony Richardson. Okay, I think he's going to go in the top four no matter what, but whatever. Cansey, we got an A here. That's pretty good. Keely Ringo, A plus. I think that was the steal of the draft right there, to be honest with you. Moro Ojamu at C. Okay, and then yeah, I knew this was going to be a reach no matter what with Parker Washington at C. Get our slot, and then get our strong wide receiver here in B and Jonathan Mingo. Pretty good. A right here in Faheko. I'm satisfied with that one, and then a B plus over here. So we would actually drafted four defensive linemen. I didn't even realize that. Well, two defensive linemen and then two edge rushers, which these guys can intertwine in defensive edge. So we shall see. We got an A minus here. So overall, tell me what y'all think. Tell me what y'all would do differently down below. I mean, if I had to change one thing, I would have probably tried to trade up to get back into the second round to get a wide receiver. But unfortunately, when I looked, already Jordan Addison and Zay Flowers were taken in the first round, so I couldn't get them in the second round. Unfortunately, I was really hoping to do that. I know y'all Ravens fans have been asking for a wide receiver for decades now. Maybe y'all will trade for DeAndre Hopkins. Who knows? We shall see. And I'll see y'all later. Peace.